Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and LFE. We are recording this on March 6th of 2016, and it's been a while since we've done one of these Monkey Crew reviews, I guess, slash observations of the life and love and synchronicity and communism and all those things. You know, I've made some observations here recently about, kind of a new breed of person on this planet. And, this has been going on for, 30 years or so, well, more like, I guess, it's been about 30 years since the Internet's been out, right? Somewhere along those lines, yeah. Well, let's see, 25 years, something like that. But, I've taken a look throughout history about how people develop their spiritual sides. And it seems like if you wanted to really tap into the spiritual slash mystical slash religious side of life, then it was a prerequisite to go into a monastery or become a priest or a monk or something where you sequestered yourself into some area of some seclusion, intensive training, teaching, meditation. It wasn't something that was done on the streets. It wasn't something that was common for all man to be able to do. I mean, shit. We didn't have the Bible wasn't in print until what, the 1600s or even later than that. Yeah, it was even later than that. It was before it was the King James version that was the actual first published and widespread version of the Bible that the average person had access to. And then when that did come out, there was only a small handful of people on the planet that were able to read. Mm-hmm. So, it's been kind of an exclusive club for any kind of real deep spiritual or mystical development within man. And what I see today when I look out, we have this wonderful resource of the Internet where this information is at the touch of your fingers. I mean, if you want to learn about something, if you want to experience something, you can start by typing something in on the computer, and boom, up comes 1,000 pages of a ton of resources for you to investigate yourself. And in the meantime, you're holding down your 40-hour-a-week job. You're paying your bills. You're doing the 3D game. You're playing the 3D game. You're existing on this planet, and there's enough time left over for you to follow some of those pursuits in your life. Wherein throughout history, it's been just a struggle of survival dominated so much time, so much effort, so much energy, and that you didn't even have a chance to go to school. You didn't have a chance to even. I mean, just the resources weren't there. You couldn't reach out and grab a book on mysticism from the East, or even some of the deeper Christianity or Christian writings or teachings. I mean, it just wasn't available. So now we have this information at our fingertips, and there's so many people that are actually developing themselves, that are looking at the inner side of themselves, and they're experiencing things, and when they'd have somebody would have one of those weird experiences in our history, they would just chalk it up to, okay, Juno did blank blank, or thank you God, or whatever. It would be such a short and sweet acknowledgement that something happened, but they weren't able to pursue it and understand it any deeper than that. It was very, very surface oriented. now we're able to look at these things and really dive deeply into them. Synchronicity, for one. I mean, we develop synchronicity within our lives now, and it becomes so damn apparent and so obvious in our lives that we can start understanding the metaphors within the synchronicity. We can start seeing them and start developing this where we're actually walking through this surreal world that doesn't seem quite so third dimensional anymore. It doesn't seem quite so real. I mean, it's that blue collar mysticism that's going on. I mean, we're creating a breed of blue collar mystics. I mean, I like that term, blue collar mystic. I mean, it really fits the bill. When I look out and see so many people that are jumping on this bandwagon, so to say, I mean, that are really starting to develop things. And you see it reflected in society at large now. And oh my God, this year of 2016 with the political race that's going on. I think this is going to be, I think this is going to turn out to be quite a huge game changer for all of society. When we're looking out at, especially when we look back at this year in the political races that are going on, and the way that people are responding to Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump. People have put their finger on the establishment candidates, okay, and they're going, no, we don't want that. I mean, of course, we've got the diehards, those that are, the 65-year-old plus, the ones that's all they know is, their party. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, and it doesn't matter what that person is saying or what they represent. They're going to vote that way because that's what they are. We still have that element out there, but I'm really heartened. I'm really encouraged and optimistic about the changes that are going on because of the reactions that people are having towards this time right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's amazing, absolutely amazing.
And that's that's because of that blue collar mystic that we were talking about.
Exactly.
That we do have the time now. That we're not, our whole survival or our whole existence isn't based on just survival. We would work from before the sun comes up till after the sun goes down, and then still have things to do around the house that that consumed all of our time. And now with our modern our modern standard of living, we do have that extra time to where we can reflect, we can go inward, and we see that happening just like you're talking about with the political races. People are having a chance to reflect. People are having a chance to go inward and see that these establishments and these parties are just the same the other edge to the other edge of the sword. It's the same thing, just repackaged. But I wanted to with this blue collar mysticism. When I first started on this path. It was the path of spirituality, and all these synchronistic events that would happen, all of these things that were out of the ordinary, or my ordinary at the time, they all got lumped all together into this spirituality, bubble, and so everything just kind of turns into spirituality, and then we put this, we've heard this word spirituality throughout our whole lives. So we have this notion of what spirituality is, and it's, something that it can't be touched. It's not tangible. It's, some sort of reflection from a religious outlook, because that's, our foundations are mainly based in some sort of religious spirituality. Whereas now I'm starting to realize that, I'm not sure if the word spirituality is the right word because of the emotional attachment we have to it, because it doesn't seem like it's something spiritual as opposed to seeming like it's something that's natural or normal. Not it's not in the paranormal category anymore.
Right. We're dropping the para out of the paranormal.
Yeah, because we're able to. We've had this time to reflect. We've had this time to work on ourselves. We are these blue collar mystics that work 40 plus, 50 plus hours a week, and still have a solid foot in the 3D realm because this is where we exist at. We have a standard that we meet for ourselves in the 3D, but at the same time, our other foot, that's in all different places. Because we have that time, we are these blue collar mystics, and spirituality is the normal. It is the natural. It's the natural workings of the universe. It's not something that's woo woo. It's not something that's out of everyone's reach. It's just when you're able to witness it, when you're open to it, when you're able to read the signs of nature, that's the spirituality. That's the normal.
Back in history, spirituality was, or access to the gods, was mediated by the priest, mediated by the leader of the group, right? You couldn't talk directly to God. You had to go through a mediator, some intermediary person, being, spirit that would actually be the ones that was contacting God.
For you.
Yeah, for you. I mean, you had to go through, go to confession and do your Hail Marys, or you had to the guru was the one that was going to access the mystical for you. But now we're starting to realize, and things have opened up enough to where we're realizing that we all have direct access to that infinite being. We all have our own. We are all our own priests.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was last weekend was the 2-year anniversary that my dad died, and my mom, she asked me, because they raised us Catholic, and she asked me to go to Mass with her. And at first I told her no. I was like, I don't want to go to Mass. I haven't been to Mass since Dad died, and I only went because Dad died, and he told me he wanted me to go to Mass for him. But now it's been 2 years, I don't really feel like going to Mass, yada, yada, yada. Well, she got upset, and she wanted me there. And so I said, you know what, I'll go for you, and I'll just be a silent observer. I'll be a witness to the goings on. So, went to Mass, and we're sitting there. We're like third or fourth row from the back of the church. We're in the pew, and I was sitting there being a silent observer. And I'm sitting back there. I'm looking up at the altar and the priest and everything, and I let my eyes unfocus. And over the crowd and over the altar and the whole up front area was this orange glow that was coming off of everything. And I was testing it because I'd look directly at it and it would be gone, and then I'd veer my eyes off and unfocus and it would be back. So I was seeing that there, and I was listening to the readings, and the first reading was about Moses. And earlier that day, my mom and I were talking, and we were talking about Moses and the Ark of the Covenant, and we were, talking about the history. So there's a little synchronicity happening there. Well, the third reading that the priest gave was about Jesus going to Samaria and meeting this woman who had been married 5 times, and he told her all of her sins, and he asked her if she wanted to drink from the water of life from Jacob's well, or at Jacob's well. And my first name is Jacob, so that was another synchronistic part that was happening. But I was listening to these, and they would have these readings, and it would be a very uplifting reading, and then right at the end of the reading, it would divert all power away from self and put it into external hands. Everything was externalized. And so towards the end of the Mass, what
do you mean by externalized? Give me an example on how they did that.
Okay, so he would talk about the priest would talk about things that were very uplifting and that would seem to be self-empowering. And then at the end of what it was talking about, now you have to put all of your trust and all of your faith and all of your belief in God, and God is going to do it for you. You know, you just come here and you worship God, and God will do it for you. And you don't have to worry about anything. And then he starts talking, you know, he's like, you know, in our societies now, you know, I see a lot of people not going to communion, and I want to work with people on that, and I want them to come to communion and, you know, participate with us, you know, and it's okay if you're coming from, you know, broken homes, or, you know, if you're single parents, or if you're divorced, you can come to me and talk to me, and I can help you, you know, forgive your sins of, you know, getting divorced, or forgive your sins for leaving your husband or leaving your wife, or having kids out of wedlock. Come to me and I will forgive you of all of these things that you're doing wrong. And then he proceeds to talk about confession and how nobody's going to confession anymore, and he's begging people to come and confess their sins to him, basically. And so I'm listening to this, and I hear this little clink, clink, clink on the ground behind me. You know, I didn't want to turn around, and I didn't know what it was. And it came time to stand up, so I stood up, and I stood on top of something. And I picked up my foot, and it was a little Lego piece. And I looked behind me, and there was this little kid that dropped his Lego. And he looked pissed. So I reached down, and I pick up the Lego, and it's a little Lego head. It's a head off of a little Lego guy. And so I just got done listening to all this stuff about confession, and about how, you know, give all your power to God and be one of, you know, this God's devotee, and he will take care of you. You know, very, very externalized, and, you know, come and confess your sins to me and I'll forgive you. And then this little kid lost his head.
Huh.
And I found his head, and I gave it back, and he was, like I said, he was pissed. I turned around, and I smiled at him, and I showed him his little Lego head, and he just, like, lit up, and he grabbed onto his grandma, and he starts shaking his grandma, and he's so happy, and I gave him back his head. You know, a little kid lost his head in church, and I found it.
Huh. You sure it wasn't the priest that found that? Right. So, you know, and that's a...
But everything, you know, I was listening, everything was externalized. Everything took power out of the individual and put it into an external source.
But you also, during that whole thing, you had some powerful synchronicities that were happening for you also. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the tripping points that we have, especially early in your development, early in your growth. You get yourself, especially if you're intentionally going to something that is spiritual, church, mm-hmm. or a seminar, or whatever it happens to be. You're going to some place that is focused on spirituality, on religion, on whatever that is. But and the synchronicities happen. Okay, you see something that has power in it. Okay, now one of the, and this is what I noted for myself, is that when those things happen, it's really easy to allow the situation to suck you in.
Oh yeah.
So
mm-hmm.
Okay, I had these real powerful synchronicities happen while I was at the Catholic Mass, at church. So it's real simple. It'd be real easy to get sucked into going to Mass every day. I mean, becoming that devout Catholic. You know, which you know, these aren't. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you're going to go in the right place that you need to be,
sooner or later.
Regardless, but those types of things. It's real easy to get sucked into these things and lose your own personal power within them. Mm-hmm. It's real, and you were talking about that. They're taking your power, right? They're diverting it. They're talking about all these uplifting things and then externalizing it, right? And then putting it somewhere else, putting it into the collection plate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's what it is, into the collection plate. So it's important to, when these things happen, to remember that it's self. It's each and every one of us. We're the ones that are having the experience. You are the one that's having the experience.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily, it's not them and their actions, their deeds, their motion that is giving you this experience. Although they're a part of it, they're definitely a part of it. I guess what I'm saying ultimately is it's important not to give your power away.
Yeah.
I mean, not to buy the book hook, line, and sinker, right?
Yeah. Well, see, I was looking at it. So I had decided to go to Mass, before we went to Mass. And so when that second or third reading came up about Jacob's well and the water of life, I was thinking, I was listening to it, and I was thinking, now, would that be the same reading that he would have read if I wasn't here? Was that the reading they picked because, synchronistic activities happened because I'd made the choice prior to coming to go?
Yeah, that's one of those.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I looked at it, and I mean, I could definitely see if somebody was new to this and they went there and they had all these synchronicities happen, that would be, oh, I need to come back because I must be on the right path. Whereas I looked at it and it's just another piece to the path that I went through, another occurrence that happened where I was able to read the synchronicities. I was able to recognize them for what they are, not saying that I need to go back to have them, but if I do go back to Mass again, I'm sure there's going to be more synchronicities.
Right.
But that's part of my own empowerment is to be able to read these on anywhere I go. If I go to Mass, or if I go to the movies, or if I go to work, or anywhere I go, these synchronicities are going to follow because it is nature. It is natural. It is how it works. When you're able to observe it, when you're there, when you're present, you can see.
I think that synchronistic aspect of life is stronger now than it has been throughout history. I think those things are happening more profoundly and more or easier to recognize. They're for anyone to recognize. I mean, they've always been there, but they haven't always been as recognizable because our base level of awareness, our base level of information, our vocabulary, our personal vocabularies, our personal experience base to draw from is so much wider and broader today on so many different areas that we're able to see the metaphor and interpret the metaphor of the synchronicity much more accurately now. Because I mean shit, everybody has access to every part of the world now.
Yeah,
we have access to every different religion that's out there, to every different political system that's out there, every. I mean, it's all out there at our fingertips now. And if you're living in, especially in the modern Western type society where you have media, you have all these different things, your base experiential vocabulary is tremendous now compared to where it was 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing the way that we've grown with our each and every one of us, our foundation of understanding, of interpretation, our ability to interpret has grown so much. It's a fascinating time to be here.
Yeah,
truly a fascinating time to be here. So, we're gonna do this is a little bit of a monkey crew of you two, and I kind of like to talk a little bit about some of the shows that we've done here since the last time we did one of these, and we've had some pretty amazing, thought-provoking shows. We had Elizabeth Joyce on in December, I think it was, and Elizabeth Joyce, she's quite well known actually as an intuitive, a reader, a astrologer, And she put out a book about the new spiritual chakras.
Mm-hmm.
And, that one, that whole concept of new chakras, I don't know about new, but I think it's our awareness and our ability to perceive chakras that have always been there.
Yeah. With the new chakras, or however you want to look at what this terminology is, I can see that, for me, I like to, get down, break things apart to smaller pieces and smaller pieces and smaller pieces, and really, dig into things and find out the workings behind them. That's the analytical side of me, right? So, it is interesting, it's entertaining, I guess. It's entertaining to read this and to talk to her about these new chakras, and I can definitely see how, it could be beneficial to know about these, for those who like to investigate and dig deeper into things. But at the same time, it's great information, but at the same time, how much of it do you really need? How complicated are you going to make this for yourself?
I'm going to go back to black goo. I mean, black goo. I mean, if you guys have listened to some of the shows recently, we had
Miss Kelly Coffee on.
Kelly Coffee on, and she mentioned this stuff called black goo, and asked the question. She said that that there were people out there that were experiencing this black goo all over the place, and she'd never seen it, never heard about it, never anything until she had this show with this guy that talked about black goo, and then all of a sudden she was seeing black goo. And she asked herself, "Wow, is that me creating this black goo? Is this my creation that now I'm able to see this and experience this stuff?" And then looking at the new spiritual chakras.
Yeah.
All right. Is this our chakra black goo?
Yeah. Is it there because we're expecting to see it there?
Exactly. And that's that is so true with so much of this stuff. You can take a truth, the real truths, the real deep truths, are real simple. They're very simple. Life is reflective. Very simple truth. Now, in that statement, life is reflective. What's going on inside us is projected out into the world around us. The black goo, the new spiritual chakras. We look out. We're trying to understand and access and create more modalities to be able to get this widget to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, we're trying to create a healing. We're trying to create more prosperity. We're trying to create blah, 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 blah. All these different, whatever we're trying to do, we're trying to manifest in our experience.
Yeah.
Comes from what we're focusing on inside, and it's reflected out into the world around us.
Yeah, I see it as we're trying to find ways to explain all these different things to ourselves, and so however we go about doing that, we're discovering new aspects of ourselves, or we're getting a new sensation someplace else in our body, physical or energetic body. And we're labeling these new things because, we want to understand them. We want to note them. We want to study them. And we want to understand them. Where, with the new spiritual chakras, sure, they're there. Okay. But in my day-to-day life, in my spiritual growth, or not in my spiritual growth, but in my natural growth, in my universal growth, do I need to actually know these nuts and bolts to continue growing, or is it just something that is entertaining to learn about, and maybe just another tool in the bag? But how much of it is vital to our growth to know about the different chakras and to know about these other things? We get into the black goo, and not only with the black goo, but all these other things that I've been hearing about. And I said it before. It's the new nemesis. We keep finding new things. We keep creating new roadblocks and new things for us to have to overcome we keep creating new entities and new thought forms and new archetypes that are on, this side that are supposed to be holding us down. If we don't create them, are they still going to be there? If this black, like with the black goo, if you don't know about the black goo, is it still going to hold you down? Or is the black goo a manifestation of the power structure, another story that the power structure is leaking out to certain people to put out to more and more people to give us another nemesis, a new nemesis that we have to overcome? How many archetypes, how many demons, how many black goos, how many things do we have to overcome before we can be free? And I see it as a lot of people are overcoming all these things. They're overcoming the self. They're overcoming the greed. They're overcoming the separatism. They're overcoming the externalization of everything. We're overcoming these things, and I see power structures coming back out and just building on top. Giving us new archetypes to overcome, giving us new black goos to overcome, telling us, oh, well, we have all these other energy points in our bodies and external from our bodies, and we have all these new things that we have to master before we can get to the next step. Well, I started out, I knew about 7 chakras. Well, fuck, now I got 12 more chakras I have to master before I can get to the next level? That's just another roadblock. Why do I have to master these chakras? Why can I not collapse however many chakras, whether it's 7 or it's 72 or it's 7,000? Why can't I not collapse all these chakras into one center point and just have one chakra that runs everything?
Now you're touching on some of the stuff that people like George Kavasalis has hit on, getting rid of your chakras.
Yeah, well,
getting rid of. See, it's not a matter of really in truth, it's not really getting rid of them. It's refocusing your own inner workings. Yes. It's a matter of taking all of this chaos that's out there. I mean, there's that proverbial double-edged sword with the spirituality movement that's happening on the planet right now. There's so many different ways to look at this stuff, and there's pros and cons to all of it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's rungs on the ladder that somebody needed that. Somebody needed that extra spiritual chakra to be able to explain something for themselves and to themselves and find a place of stability within themselves. Or the other side of that sword is it just added another level of complexity to somebody who's already struggling with the complexities that are already struggling with the complexities that are already struggling with the complexities.
Yeah, and like you said, these deep truths are easy.
Simple. It's real simple.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it is all very simple. I mean, there's yeah. We like to complicate things. We like to break things down. We like to break them into little pieces and look at all the little pieces and turn them over and look at the other side of the little piece and then split that piece in half and look at that half and flip it over and look at the other half and now we're down into the corpse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is part of our human nature, I think, the inquisitive part of ourselves, and we find it very hard to conceive that it is really actually pretty simple. All of this spirituality, this life, it's all actually pretty damn simple. Live a good life.
Yeah.
Treat your brother the way you want to be treated yourself. I mean, love.
Yeah.
Project out good. I mean, life is reflective. The universe is reflective. I mean, what you put out, you're going to get back. That's one of those real simple truths. You put it out, you're going to get something back along the same energetic lines.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, how your internal state is doing is going to reflect how your external state is doing.
Exactly.
And like I was saying, with these other new chakras and new modalities and stuff like that, I'm not saying anything's bad about it. I'm not saying anything's good about it. I'm saying that, take it as it comes. If it's entertaining, then dive into it. If you want to investigate it, then investigate it. But don't get caught up on the workings of it and having to have new things that you have to master completely to feel like you can move on to your next level of natural growth. These things, I'm to the point now to where these things are pure entertainment. And, the little slivers of gold I can pull out of them to put into my tool bag, I put into my tool bag. But most of it is just, my entertainment. It's my soap opera.
Dressing.
Yeah. And that's, and for me, that's fine. If it works for you, that's good. If it doesn't work for you, then that's fine too. It's how everybody, it's everybody's own journey. It's everybody's own walk that they have to walk. And if they have to master all 7 billion chakras, then before they can move to the next level, then if that's how you feel, then that's how you feel. Then go get it. Master it.
All of these different modalities, the spiritual chakras and the new spiritual chakras included here, they all have an end point. Okay, this is the end point is what is creating all these different modalities. Okay, so we have things like astral projection. We'll just take that for an example. And now within that, there are, I don't know how many different paths that you can take to get to a state where you're able to project your consciousness out of your body, to be able to astral travel, to do out-of-body travel. There's a lot of different pathways that you can take to get there. And that's what's spawning all these different modalities is somebody else figured out a way to get to from point A to point B, and they're sharing their pathway on how they got there. And it's valuable to some people all of these different modalities are valuable to somebody.
Yes.
Especially when it's done with integrity. The creator or the person who's sharing is doing it with integrity. That there is definitely value there. So it all depends on what do you want. What are you looking to experience? Whether you're looking to experience that Kundalini experience, that explosion of energy up through your core, to be able to experience that spiritual bliss state, whatever that it is that you're ultimately looking to experience, the modality doesn't. It does kind of matter, but there's 1,000 different all roads lead to Rome.
Yeah,
right, right. So,
yeah, and just being aware of that is.
So, all of this stuff, all of these different modalities, they're depending on what your goal is. If I want, let's say you pick a goal. I need a new car. Okay, so now I need a new car. How do I do that? I know that there's help. Now, quote, there's the third dimensional option where you put your nose to the grindstone, you make your money, you go get a loan, whatever. But there's, which has to happen also. But and we're learning that there's help out there. There's ways to make it all run smoother and all work out easier, where everything falls into place. Synchronicity happens. You can tell, and that's one of the really beneficial aspects of synchronicity is that it will click when you're on the right path to reach your goal. Now, you just experienced this buying a truck.
Yeah.
where you used the synchronicities that were happening when you were going to look at this new vehicle on helping you to make your decision on whether or not, number one, it was the right truck in the first place.
Yep.
You used the synchronicities, getting everything, all the other part of it together, the financing end of it, the logistics end of it, all together using synchronicity, following that bread trail, the breadcrumbs, to get to your final goal. And with all these different modalities, it's the exact same thing. You have to do the legwork, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be that armchair warrior, right?
No.
I mean, it
does
not work that way. You have to do something. It's like Amit Goswami says, doobie 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 do. Do and be. Do and be. Now that be part of that is when you're accessing one of these modalities. That 47th chakra, which actually has to do with new trucks. Okay?
Yeah.
This is my new truck chakra. All right? So this chakra has nothing to do, does nothing, but it draws you your new vehicle to, well, we'll call it vehicle, so because you can get cars through this chakra too.
Yeah.
But this chakra is the one that's going to line universe and everything else up around it, that's going to smooth the path out for you, as long as you're paying attention to the signs. I mean, you got to look, you got to be aware.
Yep.
If you're accessing this 47th chakra and you're being aware of the physical actions, the motions, the experiences that you're having along the way, and you're using those synchronicities to make turns, right? Okay, so you get to this one and you get this really negative synchronicity. Something smells like death.
Yep.
And you go, oh, this is the wrong way. You turn the other way, okay? Now you get something sweet. You're smelling, okay, I'm going the right way again. You use these synchronicities in conjunction with the modality, whether it's some new deep meditation or whether it is, some sun gazing or whatever the modality is. When you're going to actively practice, do the magic, right? You're going to do the ritual, whether that whatever the widget is, the accessing that 47th chakra, and then you go out into the world to put it into action.
Yeah, and I've been on this path for 7 years or so, and I've gone down lots of different modalities, lots of different teachings. Went through lots of different ways of doing things, and like I said, this example of getting a truck, and of reading the synchronicities, of being aware of it, is simple. There was no, there was no complication behind it. It was just being aware, and the further I get in this path, the more I get in this path, I realize that that's what it is. It's just being self-aware, and when you're self-aware, you're aware of everything around you.
Not walking in sleep.
Yes.
I mean, we shut we have an internal switch that turns on and off, on and off, on and off. Okay, I turn it off, and I'm just paying attention to what I'm doing in the physical realm. That I'm focusing on cutting this piece of aluminum, whatever. I'm focusing on typing this letter. I'm I'm not paying attention to everything else happening around me. It's when you put yourself in that mode of paying attention to what's going on around you and knowing that you're living in this magical realm. And that's that awareness of knowing that you're living in that magical realm. When you turn that awareness switch on, or that I'm paying attention switch on, then that's when you start seeing these things. And you get to a point where it becomes second nature.
Yeah. Well, what really, really was the clincher for me was Perry Mills and Magic in the Mundane. That
Magic in the Mundane. Yep.
That simple statement. That simple statement. When I find myself doing mundane tasks, when I'm at work or at home doing mundane things, I started looking. Where's the magic at right now? Perry says there's magic in the mundane. Show me the shit. I want to see it right now. Where's it at? Bam! Right there in front of me.
Yep.
Every time. All you have to do is look for it. And that's the simplicity of it. That's how complex it is that it's in the mundane. It's around us all the time. If you're looking, you'll see it. Those with the eyes to see will see. And we do see.
Yep. It becomes very obvious and undeniable.
Yes.
When you open your eyes and look at it, it's undeniable. Especially when you start chaining them together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when it's not just one solo independent event, you know, that one amazing synchronicity, they picked that right out of my head experience. When you have that, and then 2 minutes later you have another one, then 2 minutes later you have another one, then 2 minutes later you have another one. When you start chaining those things together, it starts sinking and it starts destroying that wall that you have up between the mystical and the physical, between the magic and the mundane. You start pulling another brick in the wall, you know, pulling those bricks off the wall. Mm-hmm. And when that wall starts getting low enough for you to be able to see across it easily, that's when it starts becoming that second nature within us, where it's that's just the way I am. That's part of my being. That's part of my core existence, my core awareness. I've changed my baseline, my conscious baseline. I've raised it, and now I still will fluctuate up and down, you know, turn the switch on and off, go, you know, have that happy day, that sad day, that challenge, that you know, free movement, you know, you still undulate across that, but your baseline, what your average experience is, changes, and it becomes more magical every moment. I mean, it just
it does.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
good stuff.
So I see you pulled up Maria.
Oh yeah, Maria Ange Figueroas.
Yeah, you know, and we had a really good conversation here. I don't know if it was this is in the last couple of weeks, you know, and when we interviewed her, she had wrote the book, The Definitive Guide to Angels from All Around the World. And this is like an encyclopedia of every single angel heard and unheard of, basically. I mean, it's a huge book full of descriptions.
The rituals surrounding them.
Yeah.
She even has some adds the summoning.
Yeah,
right? You know, what prayer, what meditation, how is it that you summon and bring this energy into your life?
Yeah. Well, you know, and there's just, you know, almost an infinite number of angels, basically.
Oh yeah.
And we were talking, you know, and we were talking about the creative power of us, how we are all creators, you know, and we got on. I don't remember how it got onto, but we started, you know, in ancient times, you know, there was this, you know, they were trying to explain something to somebody was trying to explain something to somebody else. And the only way they could explain this thing that was happening to them internally was to explain it in an external manner and to create this archetypical being to be that that thing they were trying to explain. And so over time, you know, with these different entities or these different angels or ascended masters or you know, whatever, you know, these other entities that we're explaining, you know, well, we need protection, so let's call on this one. Well, we need good fortune, so let's call on this one. You know, we as humans had to explain it some way, and the way we explained it, we actually created this archetypical being with its own level of consciousness. So with our creative force, you know, we were just discussing, you know, what's the likelihood of us actually creating, you know, this archangel,
the black goo,
or you know, on the other side of it, the archangel Michael, you know, this, you know, from whether this archetypical being is a positive or a negative being, with our creative force and our projection, our collected projection of this, you know, do we create these archangels and these angels and these ascended masters? Do we create these things to use as templates to explain different causes and different effects in life?
We're going back to that externalization thing, and it's part of it. It's a natural progression of our souls is externalizing. is a natural progression of our souls, because we're never going to figure out that it's all us, it's all inside us, until we've actually gone through that step.
Yeah.
And we need help understanding it. And we don't have it within us in the conscious mind. It's not readily available for us to pull this information out of our collective memory or our collective consciousness or the Akashic records, the truth about this thing. Mm-hmm. It's not easy to pull those things out of ourselves without having some sort of conscious reference. So we had to begin as externalizing it into the cow god. Okay, the cow is the one that's giving me the milk and the meat, and so we created this cow god that now interacts with us when we want our cows to do good and to grow well and to provide plenty of milk and meat. Then we focus on this, and now we've created a sentience out there that can communicate with us. It's hearing us. We'll feel that it's hearing us. Mm-hmm. We'll know that it's hearing us, and then it starts responding. We've activated something, and the synchronicities start happening around our cows, and how we're how much milk they're giving. We've just put more faith into it, which again, this is all going to snowball into creating a greater amount of faith into something that we've created. So we're projecting more and more energy out there, and this being is becoming more and more alive. And then we tell our neighbor about this cow god that we came across, and now your neighbor, and you're able to show your neighbor that, wow, look at how healthy my cows are. Look at how much milk they're giving. And now our neighbor goes, wow, you're onto something here. Yeah. And they start talking to your cow god. And as they start talking, it's becoming stronger and more real in not just the first guy's mind and experience, but now in someone else's. And it grows. It grows and grows and grows. And first thing you know, when you have a million or a billion. I mean, what you got? How many? A billion Christians or whatever. Yeah. I mean, you've created you've projected out enough energy to create a sentience that now has history, because this has been happening for a long time. This being has history now. It has an actual sentient experience. Yeah. And although it is fully aware that it's a created being, mm-hmm. And this goes so much with I mean, this is the mythology around angels. They know they were created by God. They did not have, one area of those angels, the archetypical ones, they did not have a physical experience. They didn't grow a soul like we did. They actually say they don't have souls. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, this is well, at least the way.
And like you said, the archangels say they were created by God.
Right.
Now, in God, for conversational purposes, we use the word God, but they were created by God. And now, who is God? What is God? Are we not all God?
Let's go back to the cow.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and this might be kind of hard to follow with this way of thinking, but time is a fickle thing, and I don't know anybody who has the true version of what happened in our ancient past. How many times how many advanced civilizations have risen and fallen on this planet so far, or let's not even use the word planet, on this plane of existence so far. How many civilizations have rose and fallen? How many archetypical beings have had those civilizations created through that? And how many of them have been passed down from ancient civilizations down into modern ones? Some of these stories, I'm sure, go back further than what we have the stories from the
look at the pantheistic setups. The
but
Greek.
But I'm saying these archetypical beings. We might think, okay, they've been around for 2,000 years, or they've been around for 4,000 years, or they've been around for 6,000 years. Or what if some of these archetypical beings that we know as Archangel Michael or Archangel Azrael or whatever? What if these archetypical beings have been around, have in the collective consciousness of so-called humanity on this realm of existence for 150,000 years or 600,000 years. We don't know our ancient past. We don't know what happened on this planet in 100,000 years ago. But what if these archetypical beings have been in existence since then and just been passed down through time? So get out of the box of thinking that, we're in this box of thinking everything's 6,000 years and younger.
Our direct history.
Yeah. What if it's not? What if it's 100,000, 200,000, 600,000 years ago?
Millions
of years ago. What if not only on this plane of existence, but this archetypical being came from a civilization on a different plane of existence, right, and transferred here.
There's another aspect here to these beings that I think there's validity to, and I was bringing up the pantheistic setups, the Egyptian, the Greek, the Nordic, all those different pantheisms. They talk about their power diminishing and them actually dying when there's no more belief for them, when no one is praying for them any longer. Then they basically die and go to nothingness.
Yeah.
So that's when the collective belief structure has dropped off.
Yeah.
How many religions have been wiped out of history? How many different thought forms have been created that are no longer around, that we're there for a certain purpose and for a certain culture and for a certain tribe, whatever.
Well, look at, let's take Lucifer, for example, or the so-called devil, whatever you want to call it by, right? And we have this story from, Lucifer's fall from grace, and, God cast him out of heaven, yada, yada, yada. We all know the shit, right? So, what if, he was a creation of God, which is all of us, we projected that creation out there for some reason, whatever that reason might have been, right? And he had many, other people that pray to him just like they pray to all these other deities or entities, whatever, right? So what if he started losing popularity? And his power started diminishing, well, it's a form, we put so much power into that they have to have their own level of consciousness, and he sees that he's weakening, that not very many people are talking to him anymore, he's not getting power from all these sources anymore, and the only way he can get power, he might feel, is, I'm not popular being the good guy anymore. What if I go and be the bad guy? I could be the bad guy, and people won't pray to me, but they'll still think about me. They'll pray against me.
They'll believe in me,
but they will believe in me. Exactly. So then it gets turned into something else. But it's just that's just an example.
Go back to the archangels, right? These are archetypes. Mm-hmm. Okay, the archangels are archetypes. So these are basic foundational parts of our thought process in the third dimension. So evil and good, those are very, very fundamental belief parts of our existence. We've always had something that was good and always had something that was bad. The birth cycle, that's another one of those fundamental things. So around those are going to be created archetypical energies that exist beyond history. Those are the ones that are able to, that have so much energy within them that they have become beyond history. They go from culture to culture to culture. Now their names may change through those different cultures, but their
energetic form.
Their energetic form, and I think in several cases, at least several cases, the same string of consciousness continues.
Yeah.
The same sentient continues. The whole that spiritual hierarchy, that realm, it fascinates me. Number one,
it's great entertainment.
and it's actually pretty amazing when you tap into one of these energies and you actually have the communication.
It's real.
It's real. They're real. We've created them, but they're real. And they have real effects. They create real miracles. I've had a pretty limited actual conscious aware interaction with quote-unquote angels, but I've had enough to where there's no doubt in my mind that these entities are real.
Yes.
No doubt. So, anyways, I think we've got to the top of the hour.
Yeah, exactly. Right on there.
Yeah, I just opened it up right at 1 hour. Synchronicity. All right, guys. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up here. You're listening to Tom and Ella Fee on the 100th Monkey Radio. And we're going to come back and I like the way we're doing this kind of recap. We're actually, touching on who the guest was and then the kind of thoughts that they sparked between us.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, guys, we'll see you in hour 2. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Namaste, my friends.
Welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ella Fee. I'd like to thank everybody for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed the first hour, and the second hour is going to be amazing also. I'd like to say thank you for everybody who clicked on that donate button. We really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Whether you donate, in monetary form, or you pay it forward, or you share the show, or you just do some good deeds. We appreciate all contributions from the 100th Monkey crew out there. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, absolutely. It's been a interesting year, or the last few months has been kind of interesting the way we've kind of transitioned the show over. We've taken a little bit of a break here recently. I kind of needed my own a little bit of personal time myself. I went through 7 years of every week doing a show, and it's been actually kind of nice to, every couple of weeks we've been doing a show here the last couple of months. It's been kind of nice to just take a little bit of a breather. So, although I'm not going away, I still got too much to say, and there's so much happening, and
too many people to talk to.
I know. I know. Exciting time. It really is. I mean, the way society has changed just since I've been doing the show. Just in the last 7 years, the way things have changed on this planet, the accessibility to growth with a shoe that fits every foot.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many people out there that are putting out such great material, and some of this stuff resonates with you, some of it doesn't. But if this one doesn't resonate with you, you go find one that does.
Yeah.
And one that's fitting the bill, one that's actually getting you the experience that you need for your own personal growth. And having this resource out here, the different radio shows, the books, the lectures, the seminars, there's just so many different places now to fill that bill of personal growth.
Oh, yeah.
I just absolutely love it.
Yeah.
I mean, we had Marilyn Janae on, and Marilyn hit on something herself. She even put a guarantee out with her book.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's if you follow she has a section at the back of the book. If you follow that the way it's described, you will get results, and that's her guarantee. And this goes all the way back to that what we were talking about in the last hour. The universe is reflective.
Yeah.
We just have to train ourselves to access it.
Yeah, we can't limit ourselves.
Exactly.
We're the biggest limit to ourselves. Her book was called Feel Free to Prosper. And it talked a lot about the words we speak and the emotional connections we have to those words.
Exactly.
You know, and how we are the biggest limit to our our everything. You know, we limit ourselves to the words we say. We say that we can't do this. Well, sure as shit you can't do it. You already said you can't. You said you can't go here. You said you can't get this. You said you can't. You know, well, you know, you're putting the fact that you can't do something out there. So that's what's going to come back. You can't do it. You know, if you can't afford something, well, you know, you just told yourself you can't afford something, and you're not open to the universe to make it happen for you. You know, you're not open to be that helping hand that the universe needs. You know, they have that saying, you know, if you take one step to God, God will take one step to you. You know, well, take out the word God, you know, and use that as, you know, if I do my part, the universe is going to do its part, and everything's going to work out the way it's supposed to. You know, she said, you know, she has the universe on speed dial. We all have the universe on speed dial. You know, it's just about opening up and being aware of that and using our own intentions to get there. You know, if we intend to do something, then there's nothing that's going to stop us from doing it, except ourselves and our limiting factors, limiting our results. Saying, I'm going to try to do this. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I'll try it. Well,
this is one of those fundamental things that we have to learn. Mm-hmm. The way that we speak, the way that we think. Is it in a positive manner or is it in a negative manner? What kind of energy are we putting out with this, with what we're saying, with what we're thinking?
Yeah, and we've been taught this for so long. You know, it's common in our culture. The word "can't" you hear. You know, I hear that word thousands of times a day. It seems like the word "I'm trying." You know, I hear that thousands of times a day. Yeah. It seems. You know, it's hardwired into us now. You know, these states of being, these words we use, these ways of thinking we have, is hardwired into us. And you know, and I like in her book, she's come up with workshops to help, you know, a wide range of people to reprogram their brain into choosing their words differently, choosing their connection to those words and the feelings behind them differently, to where we aren't limiting ourselves, to where, you know, the word "can't" seems like it fits in all these different scenarios. You know, I want to go to the movies, but I can't afford it. You know, it fits right there. But, you know, is that the most balanced word we can use for that?
Right.
You know,
what other options do we have to express the same meaning?
Yeah, and how often do our brains even go down to look for those other options? Because we're hardwired into just that's the quickest thing to say.
That's all that awareness part of our growth process. You know, as you know, I know all of you guys out there listening are actively pursuing your own personal growth. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this show.
Yeah.
I mean, number one, you wouldn't be listening. So, you know, this is one of those aspects, and this is one of those learnings that we do. How are we projecting into the world that starts to become second nature for us. So as you consciously and actively are working on projecting more positive energy, more uplifting, more can-do energy out there, it becomes easier and easier and easier, where you don't have to really focus hard on it to be able to make sure that you're looking at the right options. Mm-hmm. The right options start appearing for you. It becomes second nature for you. It becomes part of being. And then this is one of those things that once you get to a certain point where it's become being, then now you can go on to another one of those learnings that you need to do and really focus on and become very aware of. Not that this one slips off of to the side. This one has become part of the way you actually operate in the world. You're more positive all the way around. And when you're not, you have flags. Right? Yeah. when you're not, you have flags, which will bring it back into your awareness. And this is part when you start learning these things and start working on this stuff, you will have your own flags. Everybody has their own flags or their own warnings or their own ding, 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 ding. I need to pay attention. The synchronicity that slaps you in the face and says, "Look, look at this.
Here I am."
Yeah. So this is one, and like I said, I think this is one of the fundamental properties or aspects of our existence here, of our experience here, that we have to accept and learn to be able to really tap into universe, to really be able to productively and beneficially work the magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that came out right, huh?
Yeah, that came out. Yeah, I did.
Oh, so the kinds of things Marilyn Janae sparks in people is good stuff. I mean, it's all about how can you do better for yourself? How can you prosper in this world?
And it's all, and the way she puts it, it's all on you. It's all on the individual. There's no limiting factors besides you. If you want to do it, and it's nothing, you don't have to go to the gym, you don't have to go to nature, you don't have to go anywhere. Wherever you are is where you do it at. It's all you. And that's what I really like that about her. It's very uplifting for her. For her message is uplifting for her and for all of us.
Right. Yeah. So feel free to prosper, Marilyn Janae.
Yeah.
It was definitely a good book.
Yeah.
Good book, and she's an excellent speaker too.
Mm-hmm.
So then we came around the new year with Anelia Benz again. Much love to Anelia. We tried to get up there and meet with her and Franco. Franco was down visiting, but we just weren't able to swing it. And we had a great conversation with her for New Year's, and she's pretty optimistic about the future. I mean, and that's one thing that Anelia always sparks within me, is looking at the future and the optimistic view. Mm-hmm. It's not as dark as it may. You look out your window, it may be pretty dark out there, it may be raining.
Yeah.
But the future is actually pretty freaking bright. I mean, just look at where we've come in the last 7 years. I'll just use that as the time frames. Look at where we've come in the last 7 years. Where 8 years ago it was Obama feeding us the
hope and
be
change.
the change, and I mean, although our political structure didn't really change a whole lot. They tried to play the same game over and over and over again. The act of, and the beneficial side of the political end of this is that we now, as a collective, see the corruption.
Yeah.
I mean, we now it's very obvious to everybody that there are corrupt and there's lies coming out of Washington that we're seeing the establishment, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a big one in this campaign this year, is the anti-establishment view. They're talking about it on CNN.
Yeah.
I mean, the anti-establishment group, or they call it the anti-establishment vote.
Yeah,
right?
And I have some kind of, I don't know, something tells me that this next election that's coming up, that there's going to be some type of, scandal that happens or something. But there's I don't know, I see that something's going to happen to where whoever does get elected, there's going to be some type of voter fraud or something wrong with the machines, and they're not going to be able to get it figured out, and Obama's going to have a third term.
Oh, no.
No, I see. I don't know.
No.
Something's going to happen. I see something that's. I don't know. But whatever it does happen, that's the game they're playing.
Yeah.
Go. You want to play your game? Go ahead and play your game. But I see the people, on a wide range of just saying, go play your game. But us over here and us over here and us over here and us over here, we're not playing your game anymore.
We got people that are in the game that are pulling the strings in the game that are changing too.
Yeah.
And that's the optimistic side of this, is that I'm seeing that whole political structure changing too. The establishment structure has to change to be viable for the masses. Mm-hmm. It has to be viable in some form, or we're not going to support it.
And
I
as
mean,
it
we're the
sits-
99%.
Yeah, and as it sits right now, it's not, there's nothing that is happening that's beneficial for us. I mean, all this, with all the resources that we have and all the people we have, we can, it's all about if we wanted to, we could change the world.
History tells us that when a government becomes too corrupt, too dictarian, then is that even a word?
Yeah, it is now.
But when they get too top heavy like that, the masses react.
Yeah.
I mean, civilizations crumble. And it's because, and when they do crumble, it's because that they became too top heavy.
Yeah.
They became corrupt, and the masses would not stand for it. So,
and with that, there's a lot of fear campaigning going on that if that were to happen, that it would just be sheer chaos and neighbor against neighbor.
That's the difference I see now. Is that it's happening differently.
Exactly. There doesn't have to be this violent revolution for change.
Right.
If there is a violent revolution for change, then eventually we're just going to get back to the same point we are now, because the most violent is going to come out on top of that change, and then we're just going to have another violent regime in power. And that's not.
You can't change the level of you can't change something with the same level of consciousness that created it.
Yes, and I just see it as people refusing to play their game anymore. Right. I don't know how it's going to work out, all of the logistics. I mean, I have a shit ton of ideas that I think that would be better than what we're doing now and would be beneficial for everybody. But I think it
that energy right there. All those ideas you see that are more beneficial for society as a whole. There's a lot of people having those same kind of ideas, and we're creating that energy, and we're projecting that energy out into the universe, out into the collective, and the whole foundation of our being, our baseline of consciousness is growing towards a more beneficial result for society.
Yeah.
It has to happen.
It has to. I've said many times before, our system is based on growth, and it's based on infinite growth. And so that's the way this system has been running for, a couple hundred years now. And how much bigger can you grow? In our economic structure, it's purely based on growth. And if you're not growing, then you're dying. How can we grow infinitely on a finite planet, on a finite realm of existence? We can't grow forever. Our system shouldn't be based on growth. It should be based on sustainability. If it's based on sustainability, then everybody is sustained. We have enough people, we have enough technology to where we don't have to work 40 hours a week. There's not enough jobs to go around to there's too many people right now to where everybody can work 40 hours a week.
Right.
We could work 10 hours a week. Why do we have to have paper money backed that isn't backed by anything? Why can't we just have a I contribute card? I contribute to society, so if I need groceries, I get it. If I need a part for my car to fix it, I get it. If I need someplace to live,
let's go. The next step is I'm a human being.
Yeah.
I was born on this planet, and this planet supports me.
Yeah. Exactly. We should all be sovereign. We should all be able to we all have the right to live. That's why we're here, is to experience life, and we all have that right.
So many people think that when it goes into some sort of form of egalitarian society that there's going to be people who abuse it. That's the first thing that makes people draw back.
Yeah.
Oh God, somebody will abuse this.
That
There'll
and
be
scarcity.
somebody lazy sitting on the back, not contributing. They're going to just be soaking up everything they can and not contributing anything to society. Well, see, that's the wrong mindset from the gate,
Yeah,
out of the
exactly.
gate, because when within that sort of society, we've become aware that we're our brother's keeper.
Mm-hmm.
We become aware that we are part of a greater whole. And within that, we have the ability to pursue what our own personal passions are. And believe it or not, universe creates the passions that are needed in different areas, in all the areas that are needed.
Yes.
There's going to there'll be people that actually they actually love going out and picking up garbage.
Yeah.
It's something that they find quite interesting.
Yeah. People find that as a different form of, meditation. Just walking in a ditch,
this
picking
is
up garbage.
what I don't mind doing, or I can have fun doing this.
And I feel good about doing it too.
Exactly. My reward is that I did a good job.
Yeah.
And then I was creative in my job.
Yeah, and there's all different ways to contribute. It's not I have the I contribute card. So I went and cleaned toilets for 2 hours today, so I contributed. Well, that's one type of contribution, but a good conversation to somebody in need of a good conversation is contribution too.
Absolutely.
Going over to your elderly neighbor's house and cutting their grass for them and decorating their yard for them, that's contribution. Contribution comes in many forms and fashions. It doesn't have to be actual physical dirty work to be contributing, but like you're saying, universe has a way of balancing that out, and there's enough of us here to where we can do that, and it will balance it out, but it's the fact that that system isn't looked upon in a positive light, because we've been programmed to think, well, there's just going to be too many people sucking off the system and not doing anything. But in actuality, how many people can sit around for a year or 2 years or 5 years or 10 years and not do anything?
Right.
I just don't see that happening. I mean, there's going to be a point in time where you get bored, to where you just can't sit in a room or in a house and do nothing for your whole life. I just don't see people reacting that way to it.
We're not going to get there with the same level of consciousness that the masses right now have. Not into that form of society. That form of society will come when we have straightened out inside. When we have finally have all that collective awareness of the unity of life, the unity of us, the way that we are so fundamentally connected that you wouldn't cut off your own right arm, right? So when you know that, when it comes to a knowing, that's when our society really shifts.
Yeah.
And just take a look at the metaphor of your own body. Let's say you've got billions of cells or whatever, however many there are. You got all these different parts of yourself that work as a whole, work as a collective, and this part here is just a fingernail, and it just kind of sits there, but the finger that it's connected to is actually pretty busy, does quite a few things. Okay, so every part of this body has its own purpose and its function, and it does it flawlessly. Mm-hmm. It does it exactly the way it's supposed to, and it doesn't complain. Well, sometimes there's parts that complain.
Yeah.
but I think you should, even within that metaphor, you're going to see that same happen within the collective. On the physical level, on the experiential level, there's always going to be some places that have strife in some form, arguments or disagreements. Disagreement's healthy. That creates debate. That's how we grow in areas.
Yep.
So all of that is, it's working as a whole, which we do anyways. Well, it's just right now that we have some pretty bad habits.
Yeah.
All right. Within the collective body, we have some pretty destructive habits, right? Some self-destructive habits.
Yeah.
We don't realize we're all supposed to be working together.
Yeah, but and like we keep saying, I see us getting there, and I see it happening on a regular basis, and I see a lot from the other side coming through and only, publicizing how it's not happening. Because if you just took, all the people that listen to these podcasts, not just our podcast, but the other ones that are similar,
right.
If we just had one community, one town of all these different people, that are on this wave, right? Just that one community, that one town, would have enough energy to spark the town next to it.
That would be pretty impressive to. Can you imagine the energy created?
Yeah.
And if you concentrated a large community
Yeah.
in one area on the planet. Can you imagine the magic that was would be happening all around you every day, all through that town?
Yep. And
That
it
would be pretty cool.
Yeah, and it would, something like that would flow over. I mean, think about a small town. 1,000 people in a small town, right? That all had the same sort of mindset that was open to this, and we all lived together in synergy. That the energy produced on a regular basis from that one location, how could that not send massive ripples, massive effects through, and then the success that would have, would be seen by all.
Look at the meditation experiments that have been done throughout
I know
the years.
that's my thought process right now.
Yeah. I mean, there's they had a meditation in I can't remember where, Washington D.C. I think it was,
Washington,
on
D.C.
crime.
Yeah,
to try to
on the murder rate.
Right, and they actually over I can't remember
One summer.
Dropped it by 75% or something like that.
Yeah.
It was when they had 100 people meditate or something like that.
Yeah, not very many, just a handful.
And putting that energy out there had a measurable effect. There's quite a few different meditations that are going on all the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of people trying to spark that collective, access that collective energy and focus it. And yeah, it would be awesome to have some real substantial unifying force that was able to really bring in a lot of people from all of these different fragmented groups to get them all on one day at one time. I mean, there's global meditations that happen all the time. I mean, you can almost daily you can find somebody that's tried to start a global meditation. It'd be kind of cool to have one that really grasped all of those, collected all of those different fragmented groups into one, and generate some real strong energy, just a big burst out into the universe, and see what happens on the planet.
And just watch the ripples.
That would be kind of cool. Oh, let's see. Oh God. We had Karen Tate. She's a goddess girl. Mm-hmm. Karen Tate's all about goddess. I can't remember how I phrased the question to her during that show. Between God and goddess. How did that go? Oh, jeez. It'll come back. But she's all about the divine feminine and accessing that divine through goddess, through that feminine personality, that archetype, that feminine archetype, that nurturing, naturing.
It's the other swing of the pendulum.
Right, exactly. We've been so out of balance here. The whole patriarchy thing throughout, our more recent history, the last 5,000-6,000 years, there's a lot of evidence that we were very, very heavily matriarchy prior to that, in the era prior to, our recorded history. The victors write the history, right?
Exactly.
Or rewrite the history. So, but we've been so heavy on the masculine properties and we've created this value system of the masculine things have more value than the feminine things. The dominating one wins, right? The one that has the stronger arm wins. So we're coming to a place in our history now where the physical exertion in our day-to-day lives is not necessarily the thing that carries the most weight, that accomplishes the most, that gets the most done. The double-edged sword here too. We're becoming a little bit sedentary in our physical activities. We're not as active as we used to be in the world. I mean, we're pushing more buttons. Instead of working 12 hours out in the field, we now work, 8 hours in the shop. or in the office. But so that the effect that is having on the collective psyche is that we're looking at more of the feminine aspects are becoming more at play, because we're not the energy that we're projecting to get done what we do every day is carrying more of a feminine energy with it now. It's not as harsh, it's not as violent. So that's kind of opened up the door for those higher aspects of that feminine energy to come into our lives and into our awareness. So we're starting to look closer at nurturing. You know, how do we care for the planet now? We don't have to be in that take mode from the planet, where we're eking out our very existence, where we're battling the elements, we're battling the plow.
Yeah.
You know, we're able to now. We're able to access this stuff gentler. It's not as hard to break into these areas, and that in itself is a feminine property. It's not, those veils aren't as hard as they used to be, because that feminine energy is raising and softening those veils that are those hard lines between different aspects of our consciousness, those hard lines between this realm and the next realm, between my consciousness and my higher self's consciousness.
Yeah.
Those things are becoming easier to access because that feminine soft touch is really beginning to gain energy on the planet.
Yeah, you know, and I see that because, you know, we have people like Karen Tate that are really putting out this message and have really swung the pendulum to the other side, you know, and is only focusing on, well, not, I shouldn't say only focusing on that, but is mainly focusing on the feminine side,
right,
which is great for the rest of us, because with that energy that's put out there, you know, it has some effect on all of us, you know, and since we've been so into male-dominant society for so long, that we need those, you know, that hard swing to the other side by some to help nudge the rest of us back to the middle,
a center spot, right?
Yeah, you know. So I see, you know, it's a really good thing. But once again, you know, you don't. For me personally, I don't want to focus directly on just that. You know,
right.
I want, you know, I think all of us have male and female in our bodies in energetic sense. You know, and becoming that balance in between the male and female, because that's where unity lies. That's where the wholeness lies, is to be balanced within oneself, to be complete. You know, and I really see it taking. You know, we need people that are really talking about this feminine, this feminine energy, this feminine awakening, to come out here and keep putting that out there, because there's so many of us that haven't even thought about this. You know, I mean, it's only within the last few years that I grew up hearing the word God and hearing the word goddess, you know, but goddess seemed like it was something that was more mythical,
right,
as to where God seemed like it was more real, I guess, because that was the way I was brought up. That was the mindset that I had, you know, and now, you know, more and more exposure to it, you know, over the years, I'm really, you know, drawing on that side.
Your definition of God and goddess has changed.
Yeah, to where, you know, whatever that, you know, that Gumby in the sky is, you know, it is both. You know, it exists in wholeness with itself.
Well, for me, I started seeing, I guess, the androgyny of God.
That's what I was looking for.
Where there wasn't a male or a female. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even a single. You couldn't even identify it as a sentient single being, because it's all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all of us combined.
Yeah.
Is the big God, right?
Yeah.
That's the big G. Is all of us combined in our collective energy, our collective awareness.
Well, on our last show, you know, I asked you, you know, what is your definition of God, or what is your version of God, or how do you think God is? You know, and what, you know, part of your answer that I really liked was that God is that creative force that flows through everything. You know, that flows through us, that flows through animals and nature and the table and the chair. You know, it is that creative potential.
Skywalker.
It is that creative potential in all things is what God is. So we look around us in the reflections of nature. We have the seed that creates the mustard plant, right? We have the creation, of life, the more feminine aspects of God, and then we have the fires that burn down the forest, and take out everything. We have the masculine energy on that side. But when you put those two both together, the fire cleared out for new creation to occur. It was in balance. The male aspect of nature and the female aspect of nature work together they work together synergetically to create, what we experience. It is one and the same. It is nature.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, good stuff, man. Good stuff. And then we came across, after we came across Kelly Coffey again.
Yes.
I had a couple of issues with that show myself, personally. We talked a bit about
implant removal.
Alien implant removal. And, I got into UFOs for quite a few years there, and for a while there pretty heavily.
Yeah.
I mean, I was seeing shit in the skies I was
constantly.
Yeah. and I still see stuff in the skies. But it's such an enigma on the edges of most people's experience. And it never doesn't really get super intense for most people's experience, that there's still a lot of skepticism that gets raised when it comes to aliens and everything connected to them. I suppose it's in this new age culture, the whole alien genre is probably also the most manipulated and the most abused. There's more flam.
Scapegoat.
Yeah, there's more creative license used within that area than any other that I've experienced so far.
Yeah.
Anyways, so but I don't doubt that there's shit that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the alien implant thing, yeah. I mean, there's enough evidence out there that on some level there's definitely something happening. But there's another aspect of this that I think I see more as a misinterpretation. When people having experiences and when they lack a decent explanation for themselves, they go out and they start looking for a way to explain the experience they've just had. What is this that happened to me? And when they find something that checks off, most of the boxes in their questionnaire, then they go, oh, that must be exactly what it is. And sometimes they shoot the gun a little early before they put all the pieces together. They adopt a truth, sometimes you get the right one. Sometimes you do check off half the box on your sheet and go, that's it. You got that feeling or whatever it was. That's it. And you did hit on it. But then there's other times where you check off those boxes and you'll get that feeling. That's it. But that's the manipulative factor of a lot of these energies that are out there that try to simulates and emulates that energy of truth, and then it sucks you in on a big old spiral, nasty little run down a dead end road, and the Tower of Babel crumbles, and exactly, and then you grind it all up and make mortar for the next block.
Yeah, and I can see, I think Kelly is working in complete integrity, and for her, those are her truths, for where she's at right now, But for me personally, with the whole alien implants and those kind of things, I think that it's almost mislabeled in the sense of how I feel that some of these people are explaining it. as where, it's not so much as a implant, so to speak, as where it is some sort of personal attachment.
Right.
That each one of us has,
what she's doing is very, very classic energy work.
Yes.
It's very classic. What they're just using well, the way I see it is that there's a different visualization and interpretation of that visualization that's being used to affect the same type of energetic work.
Well, if I see it if one person, let's say you have an attachment to, smoking. Okay, so
Ding,
you
ding, ding, ding.
yeah, so you've created this attachment for yourself, and it's I have to smoke cigarettes. Okay, well then somebody else comes along and says, well, you know what, that need for you to smoke cigarettes, that's because you have an alien implant. And that alien implant is influencing you and making you want to smoke cigarettes. I think I see it as taking your own power away from you. With just the words alien implant, if it's like somebody did this to you, something did this to you.
Right. Victimization.
Yeah, you're the victim. Something did this to you, and for some of us, you might be at a point in your life to where you can't contact these people who say they can get rid of these alien implant removals. So instead of powering up yourself, you just are just kind of like, oh well, I'll get to it when I get to it, and I'll address the problem when I have the means to have somebody take these implants out of me. Whereas if you recognize it for you created this for yourself. You signed some contract with yourself to have this attachment or this implant, whatever you want to call it. Well, if you did that to yourself, then you can take it away from yourself. You don't need anybody else. Whereas if you want to play the victim, then you need a hero. You're taking your opportunity to be your own hero away. Is kind of how I'm seeing it.
Right. It is I think it's a necessary thing also in our growth process. And we were talking in the last hour about, these are steps. There's a lot of steps that we have to take growing through this society that we're in. I mean, those are the veils that we're pulling away for ourselves on how we see what's really going on.
Yeah, well, I know for me, if I would, if the first time I heard about alien implant removal and alien implants was within my first year of being on this path. I mean, I know personally I would have jumped in it and been hook, line, and sinkered into it, and bought into it completely and took it for how it was explained.
Right. And it could have done benefit for you.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It really could have been beneficial. It depends on what your intentions are around it, and it, like I said, it's still a classic. Yeah, it's classic.
For certain
word.
people, it's a stepping stone. It's just another tool in their bag. But I just really.
What flavor Tic Tac do you want?
Yeah, exactly. And it's all personal. It's all these are all things to help out their own everybody's own individual needs. So if it works for you, if that's where you're at right now, take full advantage of it. But recognize how powerful you are.
Right.
The whole universe resides inside of you. You are the whole universe. As above, so below. Who knows how much that extends, but you are everything.
Yeah. You can't allow. You have to. That's this sovereignty thing, right? It's gaining and learning about your own and claiming your own sovereignty within your being. Understand that you came here by choice. Number one, that knowing that you came here by choice, that's a very sovereign thing to know. I mean, if you came here by choice, you put yourself here in this position. So anything and everything that happens here fundamentally is your own fault.
It's your own doings.
Did it. Your own doing. So own it. I mean, sometimes it's tough to own that stuff. It's really tough to go, fuck, I did this to myself again. I can't believe I did that. And by all external perception to it, you could be a complete victim. I mean, the experience you just had other players within it, so now it gives the external view a victim perpetrator scenario. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's very easy. It's very easy in this world today to have a lot of victims and perpetrators. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
I mean,
but the other edge of the sword is that sometimes people need to go through that victim mentality to come out on top and realize that they're not the victim.
Not sometimes. Every
All
time.
the time, yeah.
Every time somebody goes through it, it's something they need it. Obviously, whether it's a cumulative effect or it's something that triggers something, it's all the experience has to happen the way it does. And there we go. We'll get all fluffy and new agey. Everything's meant to happen and everything has its purpose. Well, that can get a little woo-wooey, but there's truth there too.
Yeah.
There's definitely truth there. Excuse me. So
our next one was Betsy Lewis.
Right.
And Betsy Lewis, yeah, she's great. I have her on my Facebook. She always lets me know what's going on with the sun and what's going on in the world. She has a lot of predictions.
Right.
And I think this is my second time talking to her. The first time we talked to her, and she had it was almost the end of 2015, a couple months before the end of 2015, and she had a whole list of predictions she had done before 2015 about what was going to happen. And surprisingly, there was quite a bit of her stuff that was pretty accurate. So we talked, about what her predictions are for this year. And she's really on the political pulse and,
right.
I'd say, political pulse and natural disaster pulse is her two areas of predictions. And for 2015, she was fairly accurate, pretty accurate.
I'd say she was 75%, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and I liked it on her website because she posts her predictions there, and then when they come to pass, she'll re-edit that and write what happened for that prediction in red, so you can see what she predicted, and then you can see how it played out. I thought that was very very informative on her part to say, well, this one happened, and I might have been off on this one, but you can kind of see where it kind of correlates to this and this and this.
Right, yeah, and she is such an earth child.
Yeah.
She's very, very conscious of Mother Earth, and she feels a very close connectedness to nature. And I think that's kind of a prerequisite for being able to do predictions, to be able to forecast like that, is being able to read the energy and the patterns. And I mean, all this comes through energetically to all of us all the time. But being connected to the earth the way she is, I think she's got a little bit closer dial on her frequency radio that is able to tune her into some of these energies. And when she focuses, it's all what we focus on, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, she focuses on looking at what's going to happen on the political scene. Okay, so she'll take this to prayer or meditation, and she gets hits on these things. Yeah. And she pays attention to what she's feeling and sensing and documenting it. I mean, you guys would be surprised if when you get up in the morning, you get out a notepad and you just scribble down whatever you're feeling first thing in the morning. And especially if you put some kind of a focus or intention on predicting something, predicting your day, forecasting your own day. Cloudy with a couple of sprinkles, or sunny with rainbows, or whatever. If you put some kind of a focus in there, it's amazing the way things manifest for you. You on your day, on your way into work in the morning, you set your focus for the day, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is the exact same thing I'm talking about. If we set our focuses, whatever we focus on manifests. When whatever we project is reflected. Now, and we're going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's cause and effect in this great grand universe that we live in. We're projecting this energy out there. We're going to create something.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, Betsy's projecting this stuff out there and creating earthquakes or, the political thing. Or there is a way to read the energy that is not necessarily contributing to.
Yeah, it's I think it's like reading a book. It's being the witness or the observer to it. And didn't we get into timelines, talking about different timelines with her, and how how you might predict something if things are on the exact course that they're on right now.
X would happen.
X would happen, yeah. But if the butterfly flaps its wings over in Hong Kong, that's subject to change. Then,
yeah.
So we can have these predictions, or whatever they are, good, bad, and different. But it's how it. I think it's how it is in that moment. And the accuracy of the prediction is, I almost see, is based on, the continuation of things from that moment staying the same.
Right.
So
exactly.
like the first thing, to be able to solve an issue, you have to first realize the issue exists. Right. Until you realize that, there's nothing to solve.
It's exactly how all divination works too. I mean, I read tarot cards. I've read tarot cards for a long time, and when I read cards and I'm looking at the future in the cards, you can see trends and energetic patterns that are from the moment that you're reading them. This is what's going to happen if nothing changes. Mm-hmm. That's one of the purposes of divination in the first place, is to give somebody a heads up so they can make a choice differently.
Yeah.
That gives them the opportunity to go, oh man, this is headed into some turmoil or something. Maybe there's different choices that I can make along the path to change what is going to happen. What is going to happen from this moment if nothing changes. Mm-hmm. And when people look at the future for prognostication, for predicting the future, they're looking energetically at that timeline that they're on right now, on if nothing changes, this is going to happen. That's why there's so many of these guys that are way off.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these guys, some of this stuff, how many times the world was supposed to end?
Yeah.
Right? We've had some pretty... there's been potential for our destruction quite a few times. And when I'm saying this is the bigger issues is what I'm talking about. The things that got more of a collective energy to them, the 2012s.
Yeah.
Okay, 2012 was quite interesting because there was a lot of energy that could have gone very negatively on this planet. And I think there were energy forces out there that were trying to steer it in that direction.
Oh yeah.
But the awareness of people on our choice, our ability to make a choice on whether or not something is going to happen or not, I think that is really starting to have an effect on the planet. I think we actually shifted timelines, and this has been talked about by quite a few different people out there. We shifted off of the negative timeline and onto a more beneficial timeline. Yeah. And this happened right around the 2012 time, maybe 2010, 2011 time frame is what I'm saying. That we actually shifted out of a negative downward spiral timeline collectively. This is outside of the conscious community, but collectively we shifted out of that negative timeline, and we have a much more rosy future in front of us because we made the choice not to go there. And it was and the choice was from a lot of people doing a lot of work, projecting a lot of good energy, putting out a lot of good books, making a lot of good movies, making a lot of good podcasts. All of these people that contributed to teaching to sharing, to raising the vibration. I mean, we've heard all about that, raising of the vibration. So many people have put energy into shifting this and to bringing us into a more positive timeline that it's manifesting on the planet now. We're seeing it come about. We're seeing the people that are anti-establishment in the political sector. And we're seeing it reflected in the collective, in the masses, the unaware sheeple, right? Where that's what, they've been called all sorts of negative names. But, they're, the unaware masses, when I say that, I'm talking about people who I have no focus on inner growth, spirituality, consciousness, any of those things. They're the drones. They go to do their job, go home, party, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, go back to work again. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, let's go back to work again. Those guys, the ones that are day by day not paying any attention to anything outside of that third dimensional realm. Well, their attitudes are shifting because of the energy that all of these others are putting out there. And I just see it absolutely fascinating, especially I really like the anti-establishment thing that's come up this year. I mean, it's an excellent example of the collective consciousness shifting.
Yeah. Yeah, and with this whole anti-establishment, movement that we have going on right now, like you were saying, they live for the weekend, they work the job, party on the weekends, work the job, party on the weekends. They're not into the blue collar mysticism at all. Yet they're recognizing things. They're recognizing how corrupt the system is. They're recognizing that hey, I might have a voice. Hey, I might not have to do things the same way. Now, it has nothing to do with the mystical path or the spiritual path or the
I'm not going to eat those path. GMOs.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and it's just because that's not good for me. Heard it by a few people and realize that is the truth. These GMOs aren't good for me. This establishment isn't good for me. No, they have no context to place it into a spiritual form or the mystical form.
They don't want one either.
Yeah.
But they saw there's enough exposure out there from, like I said, all these people that are doing a lot of hard work, getting out there, getting the word out, spreading the information, sharing the information, that now it's becoming second nature to it's that 100th monkey effect, right?
Yep.
Everybody knows GMOs aren't really the best thing for you, right?
Yep.
We're all becoming aware of the establishment and how corrupt it is. Those things have become collective. The 100th monkey has already
in effect
been there.
Yeah.
So good stuff.
Yeah. So Betsy was definitely fun to talk to. And kind of onto what you were saying before. With the how you read cards and divination process and how that is the effect on that specific timeline if things don't change. I take that also into the context of astrology, right? You're born on this certain date, so these at this certain date on this certain time, so these are your attributes and these are your ways of thinking and the ways of doing things, right? I think that's a great tool for us, to in the same sense of reading the cards. If you know these things, if you know how you're predetermined to react in different situations, if you know how you're predetermined to feel emotionally, if you know these things that could be predetermined based on the energetic magnetic pole when you entered this plane of existence, well, if you know that you're a dominating person and yada yada yada, well, that's a tool for you to take into consideration on how you're going to react to different things or respond to different events that occur. If you know that, based upon, because I'm a whatever sign that I'm, predetermined to feel this certain way, when you start feeling that way, you can say, oh, you know what? This is just, my natural way of feeling, but I don't have to.
Not predetermined, predisposed.
Predisposed, yes, thank you.
You're more likely to react this way because that's the kind of energy that you came in here with.
Yes.
Right.
But knowing that, that's the whole key is knowing that, and knowing, hey, I have a choice to where I can act the way I was predisposed to, or rise above. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Astrology is an excellent tool and metaphor to use for that. But I think when we get, I think there's a place beyond astrology.
Yeah.
Beyond those predisposed tendencies, those energetic patterns that we do come in here with. There's a way there's a point where we can rise completely above all of those influences and have complete choice within our own lives. I mean, and this will come in a lot of different intensities. Okay, so you'll have one area of your life that you're predisposed to. Well, you're able to rise above that and finally stand in your own sovereignty and make your own choice instead of being subject to the influences around you and your reactive. You're more. What's the word I'm looking for? The reactions that you're more likely to exhibit, your primary tendencies or the programming that you're running within you that is more likely.
If you know what triggers you.
Your triggers, that's it, yeah. So you're able to rise above those things and you're able to make a choice from wisdom versus making a reaction.
Yes.
Or having a reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, it's definitely it's definitely shaping up to be I think this year, as more and more is talked about in the collective about I'm looking at just that political scene and that one what the hell? The establishment flag that's out there. As more and more people are coining that term, that's just adding more energy to it, and we're going to see the change happen even more and more. And if there is, which you suspect Obama is going to have another term, right?
Yeah.
If something really bizarre like that happens in this election, it's going to be so apparent to the masses that it's going to create a big ripple. It's going to it'll be a huge energetic spike if something really obvious is thrown out in front of our faces. And maybe 20 years ago we would have bought it hook, line, and sinker, but now we're aware enough that we're not going to buy that old game that they've played 1,000 times already.
Yeah.
We're done, with the boy who called wolf. So. I think it would be really interesting if something like that happens. It could go a lot of different ways, but we're definitely on the precipice of major change, especially here within the United States, number one, but on the planet as a whole. I think we're right on the edge, on the verge of some serious shifts here, and what a time to be here. What a time to be here. So, all right, well, let's wrap it up for today, and we're going to keep on keeping on and look forward. I think we're going to bring Daryl Berry back. I haven't talked to him yet, but I know he's always willing to do a show with us, so we'll probably have Daryl Berry here in the next week or two. He's been actually pretty damn busy with his out-of-body stuff, so, I'm a fan of that experience, although I haven't done it in quite a while, but it's definitely a trip. It's one of those
more
things,
than one sense.
Oh yeah, it's one of those things that reinforces the
this shit's real.
Oh yeah, this shit's real. There's no doubt about it when you have that experience that you just took your consciousness out of this physical realm into another realm. Wow, there is a big, big universes out there.
Universes.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we appreciate all the help and the support, and our love and gratitude to you all. And thank you to all of our guests who have come onto the show, and we appreciate all the information, all the knowledge, all the wisdom that's been passed to us, and all the different ways of thinking about these things. We're just full of gratitude and love. So thank you all.
Yeah, absolutely. Much love, and we will see you guys on the next show. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change.
Namaste, my friends.